Mr. Speaker, and to a very honourable speaker we have in the chair today as well. And I would like to thank that previous member, Darian Fenton, for her very good speech and also her commitment to the Transport Industrial Relations Select Committee over the years that she has been here. This may be our last chance to do that. And no, there is a lot of love there. I think that Darian Fenton is an excellent member of this Parliament, and we've always enjoyed her company on the committee, and she's done a very good job, and she's represented her side of the argument strongly, and but in a way that everybody can respect and understand. So it has been a pleasure to have you on the committee, and it's been a pleasure to see your input on this bill and other things. I know the whips are looking at me going, what are we doing? But no, it's genuinely felt, that respect. This bill is a good bill, and it has been supported by the parties through the House. I think it is a little bit unfair to say why has it been waited upon and why hasn't it happened. Previous governments have had that opportunity. The previous Labor government had that opportunity. It didn't do it. That has been staged. The first stage was in regard to youth drivers and the zero limit that was brought in regard to them. You had the cell phone rule changes as well for safer journeys and safer driving. And this is the next step. And research was undertaken to make sure it is the right step. And the ministers come to that conclusion. And we're very, very fortunate that the House has seen to vote for it in this regard. I think that everybody sort of can grasp what it's going to involve. It's going to be an infringement regime, which is really a fine regime for the lower end of those people that may be caught driving under the influence. And then above that, you go into the normal processes of a criminal offence, which is for the more serious offences or the current limit as it is. So the question then becomes around testing, and that was a point that exercised the committee's members' minds for a long time. And there are some key principles that I think when the public look at this bill that they may not understand, but if they understand these key principles, will help. First of all, there doesn't seem to be a lot of difference between a breath test and a blood test. So if anyone thinks that, if you fail one, you'll pass the other and such like, the advice we had was that they're pretty similar, and it'd be very, very rare to find that there would be a result in one case that wouldn't be substantiated in the other. So thinking that if you fail one, you're going to pass the other one, and therefore you wouldn't have to pay the fees and the fines and things like that, just isn't relevant. So that's a key principle that underpins this. Another key principle is really that is that first, because it's an infringement zone, that really to do that as easily and quickly and as probably as cost effective as possible, to enable most people to basically be aware that they have breached the law and suffered that infringement, but without going through a more formal process that you often see in the higher offence part of it. So I think those two principles are key when people look at this. Now, people will say, well, and as Darian rightly pointed out, there will be issues around the recoverability of funds, and there may be court cases that eventuate over that over time, but they are very simple rules, and when you consider those key principles, it actually means it's very unlikely that anyone would be successful through that legal mechanism. But people will try that. That's the nature of human beings and the legal process. So just be prepared for that. But essentially, the other principle is that the blood test is recoverable. So if you have a blood test, you're going to pay. You're either going to pay through the fine or you're going to pay through that test being recoverable. And that's the guts of it. So to anyone out there that thinking that they don't have to pay, well, you are. And you're going to pay $700 for an infringement, and $200 that is basically testing. And if you go through the other process and therefore seek a blood test, you're going to pay that money. So whichever way you look at it, it's about $200 that will be the fee. Just in finishing, I'd just like to thank one of the previous members of the committee that had an important role in parts of the other parts of the legislation around this area. That is Mr Scott Simpson, who looked at one of the issues that we had faced in regard to testing, and his valuable members' bill that progressed into this bill actually was a catalyst for making this a very robust piece of legislation. So, to everybody out there, this is a good piece of legislation. It is something that creates a system which I think all members of this Parliament should endorse and support. We've tried to get it in the best way we can. This is a system that you will pay for that testing, and I'd just like to thank our ministers involved, especially the Minister of Police as well, whose staff were very helpful in getting us through this situation, but also to members of the committee, and especially Darian. Well done, thank you, and thank you, Mr Speaker.
I call Carol Beaumont.
Well, let me start where the member opposite, the Chair of the Transport and Industrial